We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. We're back. I was by myself last week. I tried, was kind of successful, but I think I did a decent job. If y'all listened and tuned in through that episode, I appreciate it because it was tough. I got my co-host back with me again.
Back at it again.
Back at it again. We're recovering because we both had our tough shocks and tough hits with Kentucky losing quite a tough loss against North Carolina, and also having a couple of guys declare for the draft, which we'll get into a little bit later into the podcast. But we got quite a loaded podcast, as I always say, but this time it's a little bit more simple. We'll kind of work on our minute management, but we'll let it kind of flow. I'll tell you all now in advance. Our first few stories between the Whitney Houston and the Gears of War story, I'm kind of doing a little bit simple-ish this week because as always, I do an artist focus, and this one kind of hit me, and it was kind of a coincidence because we talked about previous artists that linked to her being part of our artist spotlight, and I'll go into why later in a moment. But like I said, we'll do Whitney, we got Gears, and as always, sports. So this is going to be a heavy sports-based podcast. Also, for those who are keeping up, this is day 8 of the podcast Every Day in April. If you have not been listening, I'm kind of doing shameless plug on the low. It's been a joy. I've kind of cheated. I ain't gonna say I've cheated, but I've kind of managed it where a lot of the episodes have been pre-recorded. Have mentioned it earlier, and I'm sticking to it. There will possibly be what I'll be doing known as Podcast After Dark or Podcast After Work. Still in limbo about the name. Probably be Podcast After Dark for personal reasons, but it'll be more direct and more chill. It'll be a chill flow, like kind of how our podcasts are here. So we'll go ahead and get that started. Get today's episode started. Before I do that, I do want to let you all know we are using our weekly promo of the Blue Yeti microphone. I always like to make sure I get that plug in. And anyone who is starting out with podcasting, and if you're trying to get any tips or tools on doing podcasting, definitely go to Spreaker.com. That's where I've been storing my podcast. I'll be sure to have those links in the description of the show notes for this week's podcast. So, first story is I call it a gospel soulful beginning, to say the least. This is probably going to be my era in conversation of music. I'm going to throw some new artists in. I just have to pick the right new artists to talk about. So I want to say that before I continue, because I know a lot of people have probably been looking at my episodes like, you've been talking about all these people from the 80s and the 90s when you can talk about some current artists. But this week's artist is none other than the one and the only Whitney Houston. And I have nothing but a huge respect for her musical career. A lot of her personal things were kind of a detriment to her as a whole. So I'll kind of name a few things, and Demetri, if you come up with anything, by all means throw it in, because I've researched and tried to paraphrase and not be too word for word with what was written. Mm-hmm. But she was, like I said, she was known for gospel, having a gospel and a soulful blend of music. Coincidentally, a lot of her family was in the music industry when it came to gospel, soul, and pop music. Names such as her mom, Cissy Houston, her cousin, which I didn't know or thought about, Dionne Warwick, and her godmother, Aretha Franklin, who I call the face of soul music. She was born in Newark, New Jersey, back in August of '63. She had a destiny of becoming a singer at that time. Her mother, coincidentally enough, was a choir director at New Hope Baptist Church. I was ready to say New Hop. Glad I caught that. She turned 15 and then performed with her mom, all while trying to work on getting her own record deal. Fun fact, didn't know this until reading, that she modeled, and she was actually on the cover of the 17 magazine. So that was a magazine from back in the day. I think it's still in circulation now, if I'm not mistaken. She eventually returned to her love for music because she had a more stronger passion towards music. She was discovered by a well-known name when it came to producing. Clive Davis. He's with Arista Records. He's worked under other record labels as well. This is a side note outside of what I have shared on the initial link that you all will have in the show notes. She was known for singing. Clive Davis was also known for signing a lot of big names such as Bruce Springsteen, Earth, Wind and Fire that we talked about in one of our previous podcasts, Barry Manilow, oddly enough, Aretha, and Dion, among many other artists. Her first appearance came in 1983 with The Wiz. So a lot of you all may remember or recall The Wizard of Oz and other shows, but The Wiz was like the urban version of The Wizard of Oz. Whitney performed in that, singing the song Home. Clive then worked with her on debuting her first album, which was self-titled, and it included a couple of hit tracks, How Will I Know and Saving All My Love for You, which Saving All My Love for You she won a Grammy based on that song. Her second release then was self-titled as well, just called Whitney. That album went platinum numerous times while winning a Grammy for the single I Want to Dance with Somebody, which was a huge song back in the day. She performed for Nelson Mandela's birthday, as well as starting the Whitney Houston Foundation for Children, which I didn't know about, which is a nonprofit organization that helps needy children all over the world. And this is where we get into the fun part. She went on then to meet a former member of New Edition. Most of you all know him as Bobby Brown. Mm-hmm. He was, and like I said, it was the beginning of the end of the downward spiral. They were engaged for quite a while. They did eventually marry in 92, and that caused things to get a little rough. She was battling substance abuse, and she was having erratic behaviors during that time. It led to emotional abuse as well as domestic violence from him. Whitney was somehow able to get out of that rough stint in her routine and in her career. She did get into the movie scene. She performed in The Bodyguard, which had a soundtrack, oddly enough, and she was on a couple of songs. And one of her known songs is "I Will Always Love You." One thing I may have skipped, and if I don't think I have it as a note. Most people do know her for her performance at the Super Bowl, so I'm doing that as a sports plug. She did do a pretty good Star Spangled Banner. I think most people who you talk to about intros for the Super Bowl would always say her performance was probably one of the tops. And "I Will Always Love You" was a cover of Dolly Parton's '74 single, which I did not know. It remained at the top of the charts for a whopping 14 weeks. And that soundtrack did go on to win 3 Grammys. 2 of the Grammys were for Album of the Year and Record of the Year.
Speaking of records, in 2009, Guinness World Records cited her as named as like the most awarded female act of all time.
That was a unique story. Like that was, I thought about that because it was unexpected. Like the Guinness Book of World Records catches like the most random things, mm-hmm. but to catch that story was a unique situation.
Yeah, she had a lot of awards and like firsts. Like she's the only artist to chart 7 consecutive #1 Billboard Hot 100 hits.
Yes,
she's the second behind Elton John and the
mm-hmm.
only woman to have 2 #1 Billboard 200 album awards.
Yeah,
at the end of the Billboard magazine year-end charts.
Okay.
So that's like a first. And she's done a lot of like great things, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Like her album Whitney Houston became the best-selling debut album by a woman in history. And
a lot of artists have come out with some pretty good albums. So for that to be still listed as #1, and I mean that's been decades. So,
and she became the first woman, or her first album
mm-hmm.
was first like by a woman to debut on the top 100 Billboard charts.
Right, because most times it was kind of a man. I mean, when it comes to music, sorry for the background noise. When it comes to music, it's typically a more it's mostly men kind of doing their own thing and they can kind of set it up. But Whitney kind of knew how to get her music out there to the masses back in that time. So go ahead. I'm not gonna stop. You gonna add more information? You can't.
No, you can. No, I just wanted to add, some of her.
That was some good. No, that's
awards.
That's good 2%. I'm all about the 2%. Let's see.
So all of her 7 studio albums and 2 soundtrack albums that she released, all have diamond, multi-platinum, platinum, or gold certification.
Right.
So maybe that goes into a little bit of how she was the most awarded female artist.
Being able to solidify that mark. Yeah, she made a huge mark on music, whether people realize that or not. Let's see. She also starred in Waiting to Exhale and The Preacher's Wife. Oddly enough, I was listening to The Preacher's Wife, one of The Preacher's Wife's singles, I Love the Lord. I was sharing it on the internet earlier today, and it was kind of like a lot of people, it kind of took them to that place. And let's see, then she kind of was doing soundtracks, and it was like, okay, we're doing the soundtrack flow, cool. Switched up the soundtrack scene, went back to doing another non-soundtrack album, which was My Love Is Your Love. It earned an award for the hit single It's Not Right, But It's Okay. Problem was, this was when that dip happened with her career and with her singing. It wasn't able to chart like her previous albums. She did collaborate, which a lot of people knew. She collaborated with Mariah Carey on the animated movie The Prince of Egypt with the single When You Believe. A lot of people, remember that song. Fast forward a little bit, 2004, Bobby Brown jumps back in the mix doing his reality show Being Bobby Brown. This kind of exposed the backstory where the music scene kind of went away, and it was more so bringing her personal life to light, which was her issues with drugs and her issues with Bobby. She took a break from music, and oddly enough, her and Bobby broke up or were divorced in 2007. When she left Bobby, it caused her to work on another album called I Look to You. Wasn't really the best of her albums because it was a bit of a different radar.
But it still ended up entered the Billboard 200 at number 1. So
it still held its ground. Yeah.
Exactly.
Got mixed reviews. A lot of people jumped on her about quality of voice. I don't want to jump too far ahead because this is where it kind of gets into I ain't gonna say the nitty gritty, but February of 2012, she was in Las Vegas celebrating for a Grammys party for Clive Davis, and she had died at that time, where it was caused due to a death it was an accidental drowning. They went back and did like an autopsy, confirmed that there was drugs involved, and it was related to her, heart conditions, things of that sort. So I don't by all means, if you got more info to throw in with that, because I kind of just spiraled into the story. It was like, all right, well, here's what happened, and this is what she did, and this is where we at. So I don't want to.
You got it right. Yeah, just accidental drowning in the bathtub with heart disease and drugs were involved. Yeah, she was, to put it in the nicest way possible, because I'm one of those people who I try to be as honest as I can without being too unfiltered. She was a talent in her own right, but because there were outside sources that didn't help her keep her career on track, aka Bobby Brown, it caused things to go the way they did. And I don't have it noted, but it is in the bio that I in the link that I shared. Having that happen, it kind of put a toll on her daughter, her daughter went through her own spiel of health issues. And her daughter ended up passing. It's actually been a year, or it'll be close to a year, in July, because she was having it was like they weren't sure whether she was going to live, how it would go, and she eventually ended up dying in July of last year. So yeah, that's the Whitney Houston spiel, and I know it's kind of like I gave it as an unsung. That was like, I guess you can say a 14-minute, a 12 or 13-minute unsung story, but that's kind of like the main rise and fall of Whitney. I mean, she's still, you can play her music now and it still does wonders for a lot of moments to just kind of get through things. Very uplifting.
Yes.
Definitely uplifting.
Yeah. So, I've talked about Gears of War before, and there have been a few tournaments that have occurred, and I've kind of mentioned them, but this is going to kind of be that. Like I said, me and Dimitri and I want to make this clear. We were working on 5-minute sections. Some of these sections may go a little extra because some of it's stuff that, if it's a conversation, it's like, hey, we go talk about it. Let's get it all out there and let you all understand how the process works. So
we knew it was going to be one of those things that was easier said than done.
Pretty much. But an article that. And what I'm going to do is to be fair to everyone. I'm going to share all 3 articles so you'll understand. February, they made the announcement about esports for Gears of War being presented in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at Caesars Entertainment, one of their locations, to do what's called the Ultimate Gaming Championships Tournament for Gears of War. There was a prize pool of $200,000 involved for this event. And it lasted it actually happened last weekend from Friday, March 31st through April the 2nd. So I didn't put it in last week's podcast strictly because it was I wanted it to finish out and get the end result so that way I could tell everybody as to who won. I'll talk about who won in a moment. I'm going to explain, and this will be new for Dimitri. This is kind of be a learning curve for him, and as well, it was how I was able to learn it. So basically, there are multiple maps that they use in Gears of War. I may not have sent a link, but I'll give you kind of just a read of it, and you'll see it. Once you look at it, it'll make a lot of sense. Okay. There are 7 maps that are involved. They're Diner, Dam, Foundation, Harbor, Impact, Lift, and Reclaimed. You all will probably listen to this. Any of my Gears heads, y'all probably know all about what I'm talking about. Folks who haven't played Gears, and I know, like I said, Dimitri gets a pardon because he is a PS4 guy, so I don't knock the system. I just let it be what it is because gaming is gaming at the end of the day. They choose these maps. These are the 7 maps that they use for the competitive matches. So they play what's called Escalation. And Escalation, the best way I can describe it is it's a faster version of Domination on Call of Duty. Okay. So Call of Duty, of course, the objective is to try and keep hold of each hill. Yeah, each section. Yeah. Gears of War version is you'll play to, I think the score is 180, and you have 3 hills, and you can gain control of each hill and gain points that way. But the difference is, if you gain control of all 3 hills, that ends the round. So, and it gets down to the end, it's a quicker. It makes it a more quicker environment, and plus, definitely. As you play each round, your spawn times increase. So, like, when you spawn into a game, and I'm sorry, let me get my gamers or non-gamers an understanding. When you play a game, you play typically Call of Duty or any shooting game, you get killed, it's so many seconds you have before you're back in the combat. Most times on Call of Duty, you just hit a button and you back out there playing. Gears of War, with Escalation, your time limit increases, say, it may be 5 seconds. It might be 18 seconds. So you could spawn out and had to sit for 18 seconds just watching everybody else play, and that could get towards the end of each map.
Okay, makes it a little bit more difficult.
Right. So that makes it a little bit more challenging because you think if everybody's running, if you have five players on a team,
kill all 5, they're gone for 18 seconds.
Right, and then you got everybody like this person could be covering A, this person could be covering B, and then this person be covering C. So. Having that kind of play out like it does makes it a more fast-paced environment. Mm-hmm. Now, what they do is anyone who watches CSGO or Counter-Strike kind of understands this process. What they'll do is they'll have the maps. They'll put the maps in to say, hey, we want to ban this map. And the other team may say, we want to ban this map. And so they'll ban maps to break down to what the actual map would be for the first part, and that's the map that they're going to play. Okay. And then they'll repeat it to be based on which maps are going to be ran for the tournament. And it's typically, if it's a best of 3, whoever gets 2 rounds wins that tournament ranking. Okay. So in the actual matches, it's the first to get to 7. So you got to win 7 matches. You got 7 matches that you got to win against your opponent, and if you get your 7 matches, then you win that round, or you win that match, I guess you could say.
Okay, it's kind of like tennis, how there's
yes.
a couple games before that gets you that 1 point.
7 games, yeah. So like 7 games get you that round.
Okay.
And then if you get 2 rounds, then you won that match against your other team.
Okay.
So they had that played, and the final standings that came out, which was surprising but unexpected because there were a lot of under the radar teams that kind of had to make a point, and that was Optic Gaming came in first. And Optic Gaming is, and I promised you all that I would do this in a podcast, and I guess this will be the time to do it, and I'm not gonna make it too long-winded. Optic Gaming is typically known for Call of Duty tournaments. They were big in the Call of Duty community. It's not as much the same, so they've kind of jumped more into the Halo world. Halo Optic Gaming is a big name, and now Gears of War, obviously, they're a big name. And second place was Envy. Envy's team has been pretty solid. They were able to get they got $45,000. So when they play, and also, and I'll add this to share it with you and also share it with the listeners. When you win these tournaments, you get so many Gears Pro points, which benefit towards like the ultimate, because it's like you're playing in a circuit. So it's like with racing. When you see, say Dale Earnhardt Jr., he wins a race. He gets so many points towards his placing as far as...
So it helps you in the next event.
Yeah, it'll help in the next event, or when you get to that big event where it's like, all right, everything's on the line, this is how much money we got, and the higher your ranking is, the less you got to fight to try and get to the top, to win the full championship.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Optic got 25,000 Gears points. Envy got 15,000, and if I'm counting this correctly, that's split amongst the teammates who are on that team. So each player on that team gets those points.
Same thing with the dollar amount too?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so they get those amounts, and the surprise for me with this story was because I will always talk, and I mentioned it to you, and we talked about it in the previous podcast. 4th place was Echo Fox, which was as I've mentioned before, that was Rick Fox's team. So that's one of his. That was one, and I was keeping an eye on them for the most part to see how that would all go. But yeah, Echo Fox came in 4th because they were kind of like, I won't say the Cinderella team, but they were the team that I was really looking to see how they would turn out. But as you can see, I'll have all 3 links to break down everything for Gears of War. So if you see tournaments in the future, you'll kind of get a better view of how the Gears of War madness comes into play and how it all comes out.
Okay.
So my 2%, I did promise, it's early in the season, and I don't like neglecting sports, but I like to be fair because I'm guilty of doing this when I talk about, because I have a sports group I manage on Facebook. I don't really give baseball very much attention in that group. And we kind of all have a mutual understanding. We talk about baseball as needed, but it's like, okay, baseball's going on. If it's something random that may have happened, like maybe a no-hitter, like little stuff like that we may get into, but it's not really a huge amount of attention towards baseball.
Especially with the 162-game season. There's a little bit of time to pay attention to it.
Right.
I would say that it's just gotten started.
Mm-hmm.
Only 5 games in out of 162.
Very few teams have really gotten their ball rolling. Like most teams are kind of just starting out. Boston, and believe it or not, this is a fun fact. A lot of people don't know this. I don't watch baseball from A to Z, but I can tell you a lot of names and I can tell you a lot of information that might surprise you. Like for instance, this is going to be a unique year for Boston because they're going to be without Big Poppy Ortiz.
But they did pick up a pitcher though,
right?
Chris Sale.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, so we might have to add some baseball stories. Looks like I got to do some research. All right, no, I'm just kidding. No, yeah. So it's stories that hit here and there with them. Washington, I'm still tripping off of them with the first pitch because I talked about that a couple of episodes in the podcast.
Their first pitch?
Yeah, the failed first pitch with Donald Trump not participating.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. They said it wasn't because he can't pitch. It was just because
he had personal reasons that he couldn't participate. Was his story?
Well, they say that he used to play baseball back in his heyday, but
we'll digress. But yeah, I'll have the links for the schedule, so anybody who does keep up with baseball can have that kind of as a souvenir and as a reminder of baseball season coming up. And whoever you're cheering for or rooting for, go for your squad and let them do what they do. I try to keep my eye on baseball, especially with having a local team here with the Flying Squirrels, who used to be the Braves. I'm not sure if they still work with the Braves as far as minor league, but that was we used to be the Richmond Braves, and we had the Atlanta Braves as we were like their minor league team. So
okay.
Yeah. So of course timing is key, and we're doing this backwards, but we're doing it the right way. Since we'll jump into the championship story for later, because Tony Romo made a big choice in deciding to finally, I guess Dallas wanted to go through the protocol the right way. And I'll let y'all know now, this is why the 5 minute rule never works, because we had tabs and we look at them and we just start talking. Yeah. And this story has a lot of talk behind it, because there was such a major delay as to what was going to happen with Tony Romo, whether he was going to stay, whether any teams were going to pick him up. I feel like the biggest thing with him was age, and I feel like the biggest factor is anybody really, like, are you going to get a full season Romo?
Yeah, definitely, because they offered him up to the Texans, to the Broncos. He was on the block.
And nobody
wanted to.
Nobody wanted to bite for it.
A 6th round, a 7th round. Nobody wanted to give anything up.
Right.
So he didn't really have much value to him.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't think he wanted to play for anyone else except for the Cowboys.
He's trying to stay in Dallas, and I mean, I think it was tough because even if he stayed in Dallas, he was going to have to fight for Dak Prescott.
He wasn't going to be the starter.
We both know that, but for PR purposes, I'm just saying you had to do it as Dak Prescott, and then fighting for who was going to be starting. Dak was going to be a starter next year. That was already a given.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially him playing the way he did.
Yeah, definitely. And Tony Romo, he can't stay on the field to save anything, to be honest. Because he had the starting position this last season, but of course he got hurt.
Yeah.
And Dak starts a couple games, and history goes from there.
Right, and they made a good run. Like I said, I had a lot of salty Dallas fans when they lost to Green Bay. But
some people say that he won't still be in the broadcasting booth by the end of the season. Do you think he will hop back on the field or no?
All right, so I need to get retirement 101, because I know for the coaches you have to be out a year when you officially retire. Is the same apply with the players?
I don't think so. I think they can come back in whenever.
Okay, because I know the reason I'm looking at it like that, because we talked about it a while back with what's his name with Seattle, Marshawn Lynch, who is still, oddly enough, still under contract per se with Seattle.
Yeah, he's thinking about coming back actually for the Raiders.
Right.
But the Seattle would have to let go of his
rights. Let go of his contract. So, I mean, right now in this case, I mean, he's not under, as with this process, he's not under Dallas's contract anymore. So, do I see him coming back? It's possible. But, I mean, if he goes to a team, is he going to a team as a starter, or is he going to a team as a clipboard holder?
I think he only wants to be a starter. I think he has too much of an ego to go back and hold a clipboard. Otherwise, he would stay with Dallas.
True.
Because they possibly have a chance of winning a championship, so he could have got himself his ring.
Yeah.
But then some people might have said it's not really his ring since he was watching.
Yeah. So out of 32 teams, who would he really look?
I think it'd be if there's an injury.
Okay.
Like if there's an injury, maybe he'd come back. But other than that, I don't see him coming back.
Yeah, I think he needs to just stay in the booth. I don't know. I don't have anything against him. I feel like putting all of the personal views about Dallas and egotistical fans aside, I feel as though he did everything he was supposed to do as a player. You can't change or disregard that part of the constant statistically. Like, he was a dominant force when it came to the regular season. The problem was
to a degree.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, let me rephrase that.
Certain seasons.
He had good seasons where he showed up where it mattered. I'll rephrase that.
During the regular season.
Right, during the regular season. Because for whatever reason, I noticed November and December were his make or break point of the year. Yeah. If they had a good run in November and December, when they rolled into the playoffs, it was either, they would get a playoff seed, or it was like, all right, you got to the playoffs, now what? And it's kind of been that way for a while. So that's what getting Dak Prescott to come in and work. But statistically, he has numbers that.
Would you consider him for the Hall of Fame?
Not first ballot.
I wouldn't consider him for the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's.
You don't think he'll make it at all?
Yeah, I don't think so. In my opinion,
I feel like
he gets more hype is because, in my opinion, is because he
was playing for Dallas.
Because he was playing for Dallas, yeah, exactly.
So if he was on any other team with these leading stats, I mean, not these stats, but if he was like their leading all-time quarterback, I would probably say no. But I think because what you said kind of adds to it because it is Dallas.
Yeah.
Dallas carries that. It's a brand, and y'all know I'm a heckler for saying this. Brand matters in more ways than a few. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of why. Because despite what he went through with coaches and with contracts and players leaving, he done went through God knows how many running backs. He's still been able to like be there and keep it consistent. That's the only reason I'd say. And I mean, it's tough because you got to push the Dallas story to the Dallas part of it away. But I'd still look at it like he did what he was supposed to do, I guess.
Well, he didn't win any playoff games. He didn't do anything.
He didn't want to play. Yeah, that's right. He didn't want to playoff game. Okay, that's the only that would probably be the only Achilles heel. But
like, if you win a Super Bowl, then you could be like, then I'd be entering him like in the discussion. I feel like he may still get some consideration.
I think
that's only going to be for the fact that he was a Cowboy.
I won't see him. Like I said, I think it's more or less not first ballot, but I feel like after a couple of years he could go.
What I find funny about him is like if Cowboy fans hate him, and in the season that they were losing because he was injured, they wanted him back so badly at that point.
Yeah.
And then now they got Dak Prescott, now it's like he's terrible again. You know what I mean? So,
true. No, I got you. You're right. I mean, call it for what it is. I mean, he didn't like. There are moments that you had to wonder. Because I like you say that, but it's a true statement. A lot of people were on the Dak Prescott bus. They were on it and they were stuck. Mm-hmm. But then you had a lot of people that were like, well, if Prescott don't do the best, we can get Romo now that he's healthy, have him come back. But it's like, that ship done sailed. You got to let that. I mean, you got him. You already got somebody that was carrying you this far. Why change the leader mid-season? It would have been just an odd.
Well, yeah, I thought it was going to happen because it's the Cowboys.
People
thought like it may happen.
It was.
If it was any other team, like they wouldn't have even been a thought.
It was a sketchy possibility of it occurring, but I mean, I'm glad it didn't. But if it did, it wouldn't. Like you said, it would not have surprised me at all. Mm-hmm. So that's our view with Dallas. I'm not sure what can happen, but I think I think he'll be fine as a commentator, but I think he's going to get bored. I just hope he has a personality. Like, the biggest thing with commentary, and I've learned, okay, this is sidetrack, this is the end stuff part, and Dimitri can understand, because I think you being pulled in, not being pulled, you being introduced to, like, podcasting, because I know you may not realize it as far as, like, broadcasting and looking at, like, hey, sitting and talking about stuff. You think, like, okay, sitting and talking about sports, talking about stuff is cool. But when you have to really look at it and be like, oh, I got to break down the information. Mm-hmm. Some people's sometimes when you do it, and I'm not saying you personally, but sometimes when a person does it, you're not sure, like, okay, do I have that energy or that ability to sit and like talk about it? But then you realize after you look at it, I actually can sit and talk about this, and it's not that hard. So I'm saying it like that because Romo's personality, I don't know how that's gonna equate.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, like that's the thing I'm saying. Like, because I mean, you know, like I know when we first, because it's just like when you're doing chemistry, like you gotta get in the right groove. Like perfect example, Stephen A. and Skip Bayless when they were working together. Yeah. Everybody always looked at them like they bumped heads and they didn't see eye to eye. I don't think
they just flowed with each other.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how like with us doing the podcast is the same way. And I'm guilty of this now. When I listen to one person podcast, I listen to group podcasts, I listen to a lot of different styles and learning like, okay, well, Shaq got this person who's like kind of just there to manage and handle it, but he's like the person who's like he's the energy of the breakdown. So like I've talked to you, I've said it to you before. You're the stats guy. Never gonna take that away from you. Me, I'm just here like, all right, I got to talk and I can kind of run along with it and just make it fun. So that's where it balances out. But I think if Romo can get into a groove with it, I think he'll be okay. That's like my positive spin towards it. So we'll do the ladies first because like I said, they waited to announce the Romo story after the championships were won.
The day after.
Right.
The day after the men's championship game, so on Tuesday.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you, before I do these stories, I'm going to give you a fun piece of information. In my sports group, if y'all listening, I don't even care because I'm going to tell y'all like it is. Y'all know I'm very honest. There was I won't say a big controversy, but there was a big talk in my group because for whatever reason, when I saw that South Carolina girls had won and North Carolina men had won, I didn't think anything of the fact that it was North Carolina and South Carolina, and it's like we don't like each other. I thought of it as, well, the men's team won and the women's team won.
Yeah.
So let me make a banner. Let me put it up as the group because I'm running the sports group. Put it up on the page. Didn't think anything of it. Well, I get a conversation going because somebody in the group said, well, why didn't South Carolina get their own and why didn't North Carolina get their own? And I was like, because they both happened like literally within a couple of days. I'm not going to sit.
Yeah, Sunday and Monday.
Right. Like it would be dumb to say, okay, Monday I'm going to put that the girls won, put it for a day. Then put North Carolina won, put it for a day. And I'm telling this story because it's funny how like the stories that I have up now or how we doing the stories, it kind of blends how this all happened. So I put both of them together, and I asked the guy, I was like, yeah, I don't think it's right that you had them all together. Why didn't you put them separate? I said, okay, let me ask you a question. If South Carolina girls didn't win and it was UConn girls and North Carolina's men, would it have made a difference? The person ended up responding saying, no, it really didn't matter. I mean, I just wish you had did them separate. And in the back of my head, I'm just like, it doesn't matter how you want to do this discussion. I'm keeping it the way it is. So what I did being petty is after I kept it up for probably a couple of days, I put Georgetown, but I put when Patrick Ewing played for Georgetown as the cover photo because I was excited about him winning, him getting that coaching position because it was a coincidence that I had talked about it last week. So I think it was either last week or the week before and just having that discussion. But Dawn Staley was able to raise the trophy for South Carolina. She previously played for the University of Virginia, which I forgot about the fact that she played for them, but didn't know that she didn't win for them. She had been coaching with the Gamecocks for quite a while, and it was pretty much set up for them. I ain't gonna say set up for them as in it was fixed, but it was set up for them where they had no choice but to win because with UConn not being in it.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say the more of the championship game was probably the game before, and Mississippi State won that one when they beat UConn. I felt like that was the most important game. Yes. Whoever beat UConn, I feel like they kind of won.
Yeah, because the knockoff UConn was big, especially with UConn having such a long streak.
113-game win streak.
Right.
Winning 4 championships in a row the last 4 years going on there.
Yeah.
People were saying they could end up winning like 200 games in a row.
Right.
Mississippi State came out and they actually put a hurt into them, won on a game-winning shot.
Right.
The funny thing is like how the year before Mississippi State had lost to them by like 45 points, I believe it was. When their coach actually ended up like meeting up with the coach of UConn.
Yeah, with seeing what they
like,
did.
Yeah, what he could do better and whatnot. Ended up turning out. However, they came across South Carolina, who
South Carolina had a different plan, and it was kind of almost this was somewhat of a reunion. Well, I believe, the Mississippi State game wasn't really a reunion more than it was the game against Stanford because it was the mentor against the mentee because the coach for Stanford, I believe Dawn Staley worked under her, and it was kind of like a big deal because it was like, you got Stanford. Stanford always has been a big school when it comes to women's college basketball. But they went against each other, and South Carolina came out with the win. Then they got to Mississippi State, and it basically was South Carolina's game to lose if they just did dumb stuff.
It's funny because I feel like Mississippi State did like the greater thing.
Yeah.
But
South Carolina got the bigger achievement because they got the championship. Yeah,
exactly. So they'll be remembered longer. But
Mississippi
State's the one who actually ended the streak.
Right.
I think UConn would have beat South Carolina if they would have come across each other in the finals.
I think
they played each other already this year.
Yeah, it would have been one of two things. It would have either been UConn beating the brakes off of them, or it would have been a real close nitty gritty game. I think it would have been a nitty gritty game because especially
I think they would have beat them.
You think so?
Because they beat them last time and they shut down A'ja Wilson.
Yeah,
A'ja Wilson.
Right.
And they shut her down last time they played against each other.
Yeah.
But no, South Carolina did their thing. You got to give props to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, that was a big deal because you think about it. You had South Carolina's women in their championship game, and then you had South Carolina's been in Final Four.
People thought they were going to get there.
Right. It was a possibility of both teams getting in, but as we turn the page and go into the men's side, that didn't end up being the case because Gonzaga had other plans, which they knocked. Gonzaga knocked off South Carolina, and North Carolina beat Oregon. Because that was the Oregon-North Carolina game was a unique situation.
Yeah.
But this game turned out to be a huge topic of discussion because it was a coincidence that in a couple of games before that referees were impacting calls.
Yeah, definitely. For throughout the tournament, I feel like they were making calls.
Mm-hmm.
Example for Gonzaga's game when they played against Northwestern a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
When the guy put his hand through the rim.
Yeah.
And goaltended one.
Right.
And then it kind of.
They kind of just a downward spiral with that.
Their call didn't go their way this time when Kennedy Meeks was on the sideline. I actually didn't see it during the game when I was watching the game live.
Yeah,
I didn't see it happen. Did you?
The hand?
I didn't see it until after the game.
It was the after the fact thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So coincidence, and this is why I'm bringing this story up because I'm talking about the referees in this whole process. And I'm not sure if I talked about this on the last podcast. If I didn't, my bad, because I usually catch things like this. But this one I really was unique about. John Higgins caught a lot of death threats.
That was the referee?
That was the referee.
Also at the Kentucky.
That was a Kentucky UCLA ref.
What I don't get is because what they generally do with the refs in the tournament, it's kind of like the teams. So how refs get cut off at the end of each week, right? So the best refs go into the next weekend.
Yeah.
But for the Final Four games and for the championship game, they use different referees for the championship game than they did on the Final Four game. I don't get why they didn't just choose the best referees of those games and have them do the championship game since they already knew the players and knew how they played and things of that nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like so. Okay.
I feel like that would have made it bad.
No. It would have made. I mean, so your main objective. Now you play basketball. I don't play basketball as much as I used to, but I played basketball before, and believe it or not, I've refereed games. I will be brutally honest with you in saying this. You can never referee a perfect game.
Yeah, but don't you feel like if you've reffed the players before,
you kind of know how to you know how to ref them. Yeah. I'll agree with you on that much because with me, okay, I was refereeing, and this is just reality because adults, I do kids. I was doing 13 to 15 or up to 18. I would do those type of games, little pickup games or something like that, and you know, call fouls and travel and stuff. I was always selective about travel calls because everyone up and down swears everyone doesn't understand the logic of the extra. I call it the extra step in the NBA. College sports, it's called a little different. Small stuff such as 5-second rule, things like that, it's picked up. But during these games, to kind of segue away from it, is how a referee can call the fouls, because foul situations make a big impact as to how many free throw attempts are given during the game.
They're saying that what would help with that, because they were calling a lot of foul calls during that game too, during the North Carolina Gonzaga game. They're saying that they should do 4 quarters kind of. That would make it so there wasn't as many foul bonuses.
Right.
You in the bonus so many times. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which I also think that would help. You know?
Yeah, because I didn't learn this until a couple of years ago. So this is, and I'm guilty. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know I'm always about education. In college basketball, and I've watched college basketball for years. I never paid this any attention. And you probably know this. So in the games, they have so with the NBA, if I'm thinking of it right in the NBA, I think it's 12. You know, the game starts at 12.
12 minutes per 4 quarters.
12 minutes for 4 quarters. So you got your 8-minute TV timeout, your 4-minute TV timeout, and that's it. And then it's otherwise it will be your timeouts that you use during the game. College basketball, because it's
16, 12, 8
and 4.
Every 4 minutes, yeah.
Didn't know that for the longest time until I started watching. I was like, okay, that's why they get these little moments. Because when you watch it in different ways, you get a different breakdown of how the game is processed. So because of that, coaches, and I've seen this happen a couple of years ago. Let's say there's 9 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
And the clock's running. The game's still playing. they've called and I mean it's just been a pace game of just back and forth. There's not been an opportunity of a foul call, a timeout, anything of that sort. It's the toughest situation to be in is when you're a coach and you have to wait for that TV timeout to happen when it's like 7 minutes left or 6 minutes left. Because the players need that time too, because that's like it's almost like it's an extra timeout for the coaches.
Yeah, you could also call a timeout.
Yeah, you can burn a timeout
and hope for a dead ball.
Right. Because then what happens is you burn that timeout, and then you still got to wait for that dead ball to factor into that TV timeout that's missed.
True.
But I segued away from that just to say, I feel like the refs tried to get it as best as they could, but it's a tough place to do it, especially on the main stage, but I don't give an excuse for that.
And basketball's a fast-flowing sport, too.
Yes.
Like, it's a very fast sport, so you can't always see everything. That one, he was kind of like 4 feet away from it.
Yeah. And they didn't do, and because they have the option to do replays, right?
They do. The coach didn't even ask for it, though. The Gonzaga coach didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
He was on that side.
He probably would have been at the other end and couldn't see it.
He said he couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So he would have asked for it. Because the players could have asked for it too. If they were right there, they could have asked for it. They could have told their coach or something like that.
Because from what
nobody saw it.
Yeah, because with colleges it's in reverse. Like in the NBA, the first half you're at your basket. So like let's say your bench is here. Like Chicago. Let's say Chicago's playing Cleveland. Chicago's bench, they'll play it like when they're shooting at where their bench players are, and then Cleveland is shooting where their bench players are. At halftime, it reverses, because then what happens is when you shoot jumpers, it means that's how all the heckling on the sideline, hey, don't shoot this, that, and the third. In college, it's the opposite. First half, you're at your opponent. Your opponent's bench is behind you or near you or whatever. And then, at the Final Four, they changed the venue of how the seating is. Because the seats are like in a lower area.
Yeah. Because it's like in a dome, so they propped up the court.
Yeah, but I mean, it was. I know that was like all sidebar conversation, but the point of the matter is, North Carolina got their sixth. Thank you.
Sixth championship.
And it's sad because why I said six, because I looked. In my head, I'm thinking of the Raptors that already had the 5 and then added this one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is their 6th championship. They would have had 7, oddly enough, from last year, but.
Roy Williams has 3. The coach.
Roy Williams doing. I mean, you have to think Roy Williams has been. But I give him credit though. He runs a good program.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because they are under questions for like sanctions and whatnot.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so there are questions about that right now. But he's still got recruits to come in and still play there, even though there are those questions there. Because at any moment they could be like they could lose scholarships. They could lose other things. Because
for instance, they got a guy on their bench that was like a superstar in high school. Seventh Woods, could play his butt off in high school. He's gotten to college, and I mean, it's only
his freshman year.
It's freshman year.
They tend to like have people.
They build you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they build you. I will give him that much. I think the only tough part about it, and I don't know if I've had this conversation with you personally, but I've always said this to people. There are certain teams that I always want to have good programs. No offense to you saying this. Kentucky, I'm glad we've been keeping it this clean this long, but I know something can happen at any point, because they're
not even in school long enough to have something happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. But I always worry about that with Calipari, because that's been his reputation, especially when he was in Memphis. He had an issue with that.
It wasn't like really his fault that Derrick Rose had Derrick Rose had somebody else take his SAT test. Mm-hmm. So
I got you. I'll put it like this, and I'm saying the reason I made that comment.
Be careful with the students that he like recruits.
Yeah, because what I feel like the exposure is going to happen at the most unexpected source, and it's going to be, if it's a team like Duke, if Duke gets put into a story like that, that's going to be when it causes concern, and they got to really look at everybody, because Duke runs a clean program as far as we can see. You don't know what's going on because
you said about the program when I had somebody who tripped people.
Oh yeah, but see, I'm and it's so crazy.
That's totally different.
No. But yeah, I mean, it ties into it, and I think the other part of it that's coincidence, because we'll talk about that later, is a player like Grayson Allen. Mm-hmm. I don't know where Grayson Allen, if he even goes pro, how that would even go, because it's nobody really.
He hasn't decided yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back, because he's not. Like, he has to have the cleanest year to be able to even be in a mention on the ranks of that conversation.
He should have left after his sophomore year, to be real.
Yeah, he should. That would have been the only chance he had, because otherwise he pretty much just going to have to eat crow now. So this is the moment when I get to say I told y'all so.
Going to Georgetown?
Yes. One of the few times I get to be in the right about something that's not really it's not really a push or a pull of being in the right or not. So to give a little bit of backstory, because you may or may not know this, I'm not sure. John Thompson Jr., his father coached at Georgetown. He coached there for years, and he had his focus in that time era of coaching was big men.
That's when the Big East was like at its most prominent.
Big East was dominant. Like when I say it was the Big East now is very watered down because a lot of teams have like rotated and switched to different conferences. But back then, the Georgetown Syracuse rivalry was way more intense. And
also with like St. John's.
Yeah, St. John. Yeah, you had St. John's. You had St. John's with.
There was a lot of top teams, and kind of sidebar. They also like kind of started ESPN back in the day when they started letting those games be featured on ESPN and whatnot.
You must have saw that 30 for 30 episode.
Yeah, I did see that 30 for 30. Yeah, it was very interesting.
If any of you have not, I will try to find the link or find the title of it, but it's an ESPN 30 for 30 that talks about the Big East, and you get a very clear-cut education of how intense their matchups were. It wasn't just an everyday thing like, all right, we just out here doing something. It was a true process behind what they did, and I mean,
they were winning championships too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Villanova. I think during that era, that was when Villanova won that pulled off the biggest upset. Yeah,
against Georgetown and Patrick Ewing, who we're about to talk about.
Right, because you had, like I said, you had Ewing there. You had Lonzo Mourning was there one year. Mutombo was there. But Ewing's been in the circulation of coaching positions for years. Been waiting for his shot, and he finally got his opportunity. After John Thompson Jr. Was let go, they went ahead and decided. I'm sorry, John Thompson the third. I'll make sure I get this right because I always get them confused. John Thompson was let go. His son, John Thompson's son, was let go, and Ewing came in. And it's basically they've looked at this as a big move because there are a lot of coaches who have worked with Ewing, either as assistant coaches or overall, and they're just saying this is time. Like this is his opportunity. And I mean, he can either make the most of it. I think the only thing that's tough about it is they're going to put a lot of pressure on him. Like they're going to put a high expectation on him winning.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, but it's also Georgetown, so you could get recruits there. He needs to fill himself with the right people around him, you could say, like the right recruiters, people who know people, you know what I mean, in the recruiting circuit, and other coaches who actually know how to coach basketball. Yeah, and
speaking of coaching-wise, his son is not allowed to coach on his team.
Is that like a new rule?
That is a rule that they have in Georgetown, and I can't think of the name of it.
Like the John Thompson rule.
No, it's like let me see. All right. I'm going to look for this because I don't like doing...
While you're looking for that, another stat about, like how Patrick Ewing hasn't, like, got a coaching job in the NBA. I saw how there's only like 15 coaches in the NBA right now who actually previously played. Okay. 13 of them are guards, and none of them are centers. So it might be just, like, nobody gives love to the centers.
I mean, that's... I don't, and I can't even say debatable. That's pretty much what it comes down to. All right, so I have the story. Let's see. By Patrick Ewing being the coach, his son is not able to play. There have been previous reports that. First, I got to get the random.
Oh, his son's not able to play there.
His son's not able to coach there. Oh, okay. His son, because his son played for Georgetown a while back. Okay. He didn't have a good NBA career. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna be honest. Let's see. I wish. Yeah, the school. Okay. The Sports Junkies on 106.7, The Fan on Wednesday stated that the school nepotism policies prevent him from keeping his son on as an assistant. So he can't bring he basically is not allowed or is unable to have his son be an assistant coach on the team.
How do you feel about that, Ro?
I feel that it's an odd circumstance, but I mean, can't if that's what they got in place, you can't fight it. Do I think?
I feel like it's a decent rule. Because what if somebody's just doing favoritism and just having their son on board so they get some experience as a coach?
Yeah, like say
somebody who has experience.
Yeah, like if you had, for instance, not that this would ever happen, but if you had LeVar Ball coaching, and one of the other brothers was like on the team, I wouldn't. You may want that, you may not want it. It depends, but yeah, I think this is a big pick. I found this story strictly because I'm a big fan of Ewing.
Just like at most jobs, you know how most jobs they don't allow you to have in a manager position, you can't have a relative under you.
Exactly.
At that position.
Yeah, for like conflict of interest purposes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make sense.
Do you see? Okay, so this is where we'll do the pass the mic on this one. Do you see Ewing getting them to the tournament in the next 3 years?
Within the next 3 years, do I see them going into the tournament?
Yeah, like we not talking about NIT. We talking about like real deal, like six. Could they possibly get into the 68?
Let me see. I'm looking a little bit at their roster right now, actually, as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I say so. Within the 3 year span, by the fourth year, because you also have to let him get his own
recruits. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Teach his own players.
Yeah,
I like how you gave him a 3 year span.
Yeah, you always want to give. I mean, we'll talk about this again with the drafting coming up in a moment. But
I see it.
I always like to give. You never want to be unfair and not say that it should happen like right now. Like you can't. I wouldn't expect him to come in like first year. First year is going to be a strong year for him because they're going to have media. The media is going to spend more time reliving his history instead of focusing on what are you doing for me lately? Are you going to win for us? Mm-hmm. What is your goal? What are you like? Who are you looking to bring in? How are you going to go about your recruiting? Like I ain't gonna lie, I watch college basketball, but the process behind the scenes to get players to join us to a school is not easy.
It's not, but his name will help with that.
Yeah, his name. I think his name and his reputation because he had a good reputation with the school. So. I know I did like a dab of football earlier, and this is kind of just a short story. I'm not giving this too much attention because it was just kind of a unique story that kind of caught my eye. Chad Johnson is making an appearance. He's playing in the Mexico's football league, Liga de Futbol Americana Profesional. It was a unique story because he did score a touchdown in this game, and factoring in 39 can still play. Like, it's not bad.
The video behind it was funny because it shows him on the beginning of the play.
And then it's like phased out.
And then when it goes back to him, like, nobody's around him. And it's just him
catching it. Yeah, so that video will be on in the show notes as well. But it was, he kind of had like a decent setup. They broke down, it was a breakdown of his career as far as he racked up over 11,000 yards and quite a few touchdowns in his career. By him being there, he got a few other perks like a car. He was able to smoke some cigars, and then he's working with Antonio Brown, I guess, during the off season. And this is a side note because it did hit my news feed. Big Ben is not retiring. He is.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he will be playing next season, which I kind of saw that coming.
Yeah,
I think they just had to kind of prolong that story to just kind of give it a little bit of attention. So having Antonio Brown being there will help out quite a bit. So I have a story and a half, and then I'm going to kind of throw my wild card in first. Today is Saturday, and we've mentioned earlier that we're kind of in the home stretch of the season of the NBA season, and big news came out earlier this week that Kevin Durant will be returning back to playing, and he's actually going to be playing tonight
against the Pelicans.
Against the Pelicans, okay. I'm glad because I was brain farted. So,
yeah, I had a feeling you're
but I feel as though so this was addressed, and I'll make sure I have this in the notes as well. His breakdown of stat lines, things of that sort. I feel like they're having him play just to get his feet under himself to just play since the playoffs are coming. Because right now they've They've got the 1 seed frozen. They'd have to do something. They can't do. They have no chance.
They can't lose it. They already clinched it.
Yeah, they got that pretty much frozen. So I mean, as far as they're concerned, it's just more or less getting him out there playing.
Condition.
Because I mean, whoever they play as the 8 seed, playing Portland might be a little bit of a battle. If they play Denver, it's going to be a walkthrough.
I think either way.
It's a walkthrough.
The only team that I thought could have pushed them a little bit was the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies locked up their 7th seed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I still feel tough. I ain't gonna say tough. I feel it's kind of a unique scenario because before that injury, Durant was in the conversation of MVP, and we talked about this earlier. And I'm adding this story in as well before I do the mock draft or the draft story, and then our ads of the week. Actually, we got 1.5 this week because he did. My co-host Demetri did bring up another one that I forgot all about. But you have with the players being the way they are, it's been Westbrook, Harden. This week,
Westbrook's been mainly the top.
Yeah, Westbrook
since he clinched up his triple-double.
Yeah, Westbrook should have it solidified with his with having a triple-double average for the season, which I mean, obviously, I'm only 34 and I've never seen that. So I mean, last person did it was Big O, and that was like 55 years ago. So I mean,
it was like 1961, 62.
Right. Yeah.
He's still also trying to beat the Big O's record because he's tied with the record right now of
triple doubles
in the
season. Yeah,
they're tied at 41. So he's still trying to get that 42nd one.
I think he'll get it though. I don't see why he wouldn't.
They have 30 more games left.
Yeah, 3 games. It's a matter of who they're playing, and I mean, even if, I think he can get away with doing it for the right reason, and I don't think it's going to be viewed as like he's padding stats.
Everybody wants him to get it, so
yeah, I feel like it's a good chance. Do you? And I asked this in my sports group.
Denver twice and the Timberwolves. So I see it coming.
I see it against one of the Denver games, and see that's gonna be tough because then them playing them like they are, that's gonna probably hurt Denver's chances of getting into the playoffs. But that's another story. Yeah. Do you feel right now that this performance is solidifying his chances of being MVP for Westbrook?
It's been one of those like. It's hard to take it away from the other one because if you give it to one, you're taking it away from the other one.
Right.
But I feel like you'd have to give it to Westbrook. At this point, I feel like you have to give it to him. Okay. But I've been a Harden guy. If I had to vote myself, I'd probably give it to Harden.
Yeah, I mean that's how I
see Westbrook winning it though.
Yeah, that's what I feel is the case too. And I think if I'm recalling it correctly, I don't think it was last season. I think it was the year before when Westbrook was in the conversation of MVP and they didn't make the playoffs, and so he pretty much was gone. Like, it wasn't even a thought. It might have been last year.
It was 2 years ago. He was kind of a thought. Harden was also a thought, too. Harden was second. He was second behind Steph Curry that year. Right. And then Harden was also second last year behind Steph Curry again. Yeah. So I feel like that's why I thought this was Harden's time, and then Westbrook comes out with a triple-double.
And I mean, it showed up. I feel like what pushed him for this, and no one probably would think of this, but my personal reason of why he started to solidify the case was the All-Star snub. When he didn't get the starting position, that really was like kind of his push. Because he was a shoo-in for getting on the bench. That was a given. Yeah. But him getting the actual, like once he got the nod, I mean, he played, him and Durant having a little chemistry thing, and then when it came back to the regular season, he just went on a mission. He came out to play.
And winning games, too.
Yeah. I mean, because I really didn't know whether they were going to... At one point, I really thought they were not going to make the playoffs. I'm not going to lie.
I think if they were also a little bit higher of a seed, like the 4 seed, then he would definitely be the...
Yeah, if he was 4, it'll be his definite by far. So you asked, and I'm passing this over to you because you brought this up as a unique conversation piece. Mm-hmm. We'll do this and then we'll do our last 2 and then kind of cap off. And thank you all for tuning in. I know we've been going. This ain't bad. We did like a little over an hour, and this is like not as aggressive as the other one. So this is cool. You stated that there was a chance that they might look at doing the MVP voting after the finals.
That's what some people were talking about. They say that they should. Yeah, I think after the playoffs.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
This year, that'd be definitely be a good idea because it's OKC is planning to play Houston Rockets if the playoffs started today.
Mm-hmm.
And I would feel like you'd have to give the MVP to whoever won that series. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Unless one of them unless Westbrook lost and averaged like a triple double in the
last, it brings up an odd
to Game 7.
Yeah.
But I feel like that'd be like the best way to go. I don't know. It's
no, I got you. I know I put you on the spot, but it's something that I really feel would be interesting if the league did it. Because I mean, we both, like we talk about it all the time. Like my Kevin Garnett, your Kobe Bryant, like. But then
what do you favorite though? Do you favorite like the great regular season they had, or what if they kind of tailed off?
Yeah.
What if someone tailed off, but what if someone else did great in the playoffs but didn't do as great during the regular season?
But I feel like they pushed it, like no one notices this, but I've looked at it over the last few years. They pushed the they pushed the MVP battle back more and more to prolong it. Not going to say prolong it, but to kind of give a better option of who they think should be the winner.
My question is, when do they vote, though? Because I know they announced it like a little bit like after the first round or something of that nature, but I don't know when they actually vote for the MVP.
Mm-hmm. And see, this year they're doing a fan vote, so that should be even more interesting.
Like if they did like a type of thing like where like there's like 5 finalists,
mm-hmm.
and like out of those 5, like one of those 5 would win the MVP at the end of the playoffs or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna research that. I feel like I may have to bring that to next week's podcast. Like right now, looking at it as of right now, they have Russell as first and then Harden as second, and it's kind of literally and it's no knock against anybody else. It's kind of a 2-person race. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll look at that and see what happens, because we'll be kind of rolling into the playoffs and then kind of starting to talk about our upcoming lottery picks and draft spots and who's going and who's leaving and who's staying. So looking at the draft coming up for 2017, and we'll kind of lightly touch on 2018's draft class for the NBA. There's still a couple of players who haven't committed. Josh Jackson is not committed. That have declared.
Yeah.
Josh Jackson is not. Miles Bridges is not. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Dennis Smith, Isaac is gone. These people. No, most of them have gone. Mostly everybody who they have on our list have kind of made it clear they're going.
I think Josh Jackson will eventually commit. The second person you had said was
Miles Bridges from Michigan State.
I could see him coming back.
I think he needs to. I feel like he could go back because
he has NBA body though. He has NBA body.
He does, but I feel as though
it would benefit him in the long run
to
go back. Yeah, definitely.
Because he really didn't have a good season. He had an okay season in Michigan State, but he played just kind of.
And Izzo's great at developing players.
Yes.
Too. So
Draymond Green.
and they have a nice nice incoming recruiting class.
Yeah.
So that would be great for him.
So right now on the mock draft they have it. It's updated. It's a little behind, but we can't go by this. This can change. Excuse me. They have Fultz as number 1, Lonzo number 2, Jackson going to LA, and that's
with
based on records and how things are looking as of right now.
Before the lottery and whatnot.
Right. I was intrigued because last week, I think it was by the first, probably it might have been in March. I think I might have said it. I was like, 4 players are gonna declare for the draft. I got all 4 of them right. De'Aaron Fox declared first. Malik Monk was second. Bam is the only one who's declaring without an agent, and Briscoe is declaring with an agent.
Monk and Fox are declaring with the agent because they already knew they were going to be.
Yeah, they were gone as soon as they lost to North Carolina. They probably had it. They did the emotional breakdown. I'm not taking nothing away from that moment
because they really wanted to win it all.
Yeah.
So they wanted to give it some time.
Yeah, but you still got to process it. But it was like this is what I was pushing to go for, and I've done it. I attempted, so I'm gonna go ahead and go pro. And the NBA, in their case, they're solid. With the type of class you have, it's. And we've talked about this as well. This is more of a guard-based draft class.
Guard and wings.
Yeah.
This is one of the best deepest draft classes in a few years, actually.
Yeah.
Because any of the top,
top 10 can. I mean, the top 10 are unique, all unique players.
Well, like the top 6 are all like players who can like actually make impacts. Like,
oh yeah, Jason Tatum, wherever he goes, he's a scorer. I like Jason Tatum's game. It's
I don't think he's gonna go. He wouldn't go to the Sixers.
Nah, I don't see him in the Sixers, but I mean, whoever he gets to, definitely. He'll fit in. Mm-hmm. I like Jackson's game. Josh Jackson. I'm claiming Josh Jackson is gone. I know they prolonged it. Fultz, they're saying is the best point guard out of this class. A lot of people have been debating it because they feel like Lonzo Ball is better. I think it's going to come down to who has the first pick and what they want to do with that pick.
I think it's going to be the Celtics with that first pick, and I think they're going to pick up Fultz.
They'll pick up Fultz, yeah.
I think Fultz will be the better. I think Fultz is made better for the NBA because now you see a lot of NBA guards who are score-first guards, and he's a scoring guard. Like he can light it up.
I mean, he averaged 23 at Washington.
On a team where he was the main focus defensively, like when you're coming in.
Yeah, and I want to say we mentioned this. If we didn't, then I'll make sure it's reiterated. This could possibly be the third year that you're going to have a number one pick come from a team. No, I'm sorry. This is going to be if between this draft class and next year's upcoming possible draft class, there's a possibility you could have 3 number one draft picks who all come from pretty bad teams go as the first as the number one pick. Because last year was Ben Simmons. It was a story that I saw, and I'm not gonna really put the link for it because I feel like it's hearsay. They're mentioning that they feel like Ben Simmons has gotten a little taller. He's gained 2 inches.
It's possible. Like Paul George gained 2 inches after his rookie season.
Yeah, so they're looking at it. It's a possibility he could be 7 foot and be a point guard in Philly.
More like a point forward.
He'll be a point forward. He'll be an obvious point forward. But they're saying they're having him handle the ball more since he's been practicing.
I would like for their team. I would like Monk. Monk would be like the best fit.
Oh yeah, because they realistically don't have a shooter.
Yeah, they need a shooter. Unless he can play off the ball too.
Yeah.
Who do you think will be the best play? Like
the best player to look at
5 years down the road. Who do you think will be the best player that we're talking about out of this draft?
I would see. So my first. So I'm going to take all my Kentucky biasness out of this.
All right.
My first shot, automatically, I look at Dennis Smith because he looks like he can play. The only question I have with Dennis Smith...
It's funny you say Dennis Smith because you're like on both sides of the fence with Dennis Smith, huh?
Yeah, because Dennis Smith, one moment I feel like I like him and I can enjoy watching him play. But then it's like I don't know what's going to happen once he goes to that next level because NC State he was kind of on. You could tell that NC State was on autopilot. Because if you go into NC State, you making it clear I'm gonna play. I may play another year, a year maybe 2, but I'm going to the NBA. Because he really only went to NC State to follow the one and done rule. He already knew he was leaving. My other option, and this might surprise you, he's low in the draft in the picks that they have. I like Jonathan Isaac. I really, it's something about him.
He's a question one. He's kind of like.
I think his size is gonna hurt because I feel like Jonathan Isaac reminds me of Ingram as far as size, like weight wise.
He's taller.
He's taller, but he's skinny. He ain't got no weight on him.
He's skinny. He has better defense, you could say.
Right.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Because he's not as tall as somebody else who was kind of a unicorn coming out was Porzingis a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
But he's 7'2", 7'3".
Right.
So he's a little bit different. Who I would say probably like the best one coming out of this draft. I'm gonna put my bets on Fultz.
On Fultz, okay.
That might be like the easy way out.
Yeah, I mean, there's no right. So with drafts, and I say this all the time.
Or De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, he just has like he has a dog in him. Like,
Fox can play. I like watching Fox play. I just didn't want to pick my biased pick, and the only reason I stayed away from Fultz and Lonzo is because they're high picks, but I'm already. It's not that I'm looking for them to do bad. I just know your first year is always a you got to fight year.
I don't know. Fultz, I don't know. I think he just has it. Like he just can score. Like he has that NBA body.
Yeah.
And he just can score. Especially if he goes to the Celtics, he wouldn't be the main focus. It'd be Isaiah Thomas for sure.
Yeah. Because and it's crazy. Because I look at it. I remember when Isaiah Thomas was literally like the fourth quarter bandit of just let's have him come off the bench. Let's have him do production. Now it's like Isaiah Thomas all-star picks and. It's a better run, but it'll take a lot more pressure off of him. It might make Marcus Smart look a little bit better because he's been just struggling. I haven't been too impressed with Marcus Smart like that. He's
good defensively.
Yeah, defensively he's fine. Seeing him shoot and seeing him on the offensive side, he's like I didn't realize how important this is until I watched a lot of players and your player efficiency ranking. It's not a relevant stat to the everyday John or Jane Doe because they look at it as how many points did he score, how many rebounds, how many assists, did they have any blocks. Player efficiency really makes an impact because if you take that player off the floor, how does it affect that team? Like Durant, when Durant went out, the first few games, there was a real like, oh my God, Golden State is panic. Now it's like they've gotten them to the floor, but they got past that. They've been running pretty good ball. So now it's like if Durant comes back, it's just an added weapon.
They still got to move. They got to
solidify. Yeah, I agree with that part. I saw the 2018 class. It's still early. We can't really say anything about many of them yet because
not as strong as the 2017 class.
Right.
Though.
This is going to be more of a big man class. Robert Williams, I like his name because he's coming out. He's probably going to come out next year because he'll kind of increase his chances of playing. And they'll have more like this. So the list that we have is kind of concrete, but it's going to be changed strictly on the basis of once they show where players are actually going to be declared. A lot of guys have not declared. Kevin Knox hasn't declared.
And there'll definitely be some people who actually show up in college who actually move themselves up the board who probably aren't even on this board. Mm-hmm. So things will definitely change.
Like Frank Jackson right now is 21st on this list.
He could go up.
Yeah, because if you really, to be honest, you didn't hear much about him this year.
But then if you saw some of the games though, like he
had his work.
He made some shots when they needed him to make shots.
Yeah.
Like he has a 3-point shot. He can get to the hoop. He's a scoring guard too. So,
right.
And as we said before, the league has a lot of scoring guards. And that's where it's going.
Yeah. Let's see. Andrew Jones, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with Texas.
Syracuse, Texas.
Because he was playing like this year was kind of just him getting the flow of the game. I think next year he'll get with players in college. I'll say this and then we'll do our cap with Ass of the Week. With players you can see like the first year, if they look like they got that I'm ready to play and I'm trying to bring my A game, they usually get a higher nod and a higher talk in the draft discussion. If it's not really there and they don't see it, it's like, okay, come back a year, play through it, and you may increase your draft stock, you may diminish it. There's never it's never like a solid answer for that. So we'll just keep an eye on it and see how that all comes together. Like I said, the 2018 class, I'm not gonna really think about too much, only because it's still early.
Definitely early.
But our last story, I picked an article, but I really don't need an article. This is kind of just a self-explanatory. I guess I'll call this the NBA code, or matter of fact, the blowout code. I guess you can call it.
Yeah, they have like a cardinal rule.
Yeah, it's like if you're up by a certain amount of points. Usually, it's in this case they were up by 24. They won the game by 24 points.
So they're up by 22 at that time because he had to shoot flagrant
free throws. Yeah. So if you're up by 26. anything past 15
in the last
minute, unless it's the other team just starting to hit random threes, you just can kind of hold the ball and just manage the clock.
I'm saying JaVale McGee shooting a 3, like it's not going to go in.
It's not going to go in.
He airballed it. Right. Even though like Brandon Jennings pushed him, he airballed it and he knew he was going to airball it.
He knew he was going to miss it. But and his reason that he gave for doing this was that they didn't want to turn the ball over.
They didn't want shot clock violations.
Right.
Turn the ball over.
They didn't want to affect because it was a more stat-based thing. Well, Brandon Jennings took offense to the jump shot and gave the shove of all shoves towards him. And it led to him getting flagrant. It was a flagrant one.
I think there was more to it than that, though.
Okay.
Because in the last minute, also, it was still in the last minute or minute 30 or something of that nature, when they were still about 20 or so.
Right.
Draymond Green had 8 points, 12 boards, 13 assists.
Right.
So that's right there now, triple double. They're already up 20 points.
Yeah.
They still have Curry in the game. They still have Draymond Green in the game.
They wanted everybody full flow.
Draymond Green shoots a 3, makes the 3 too, so he gets the triple double.
Yeah.
So I think they were kind of salty about that, and the fact that Stephen Curry went for his 40 that game.
Yeah.
And then McGee's gonna go ahead and shoot that shot as well too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's kind of like that. call the pot calling the kettle black. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got you.
Because Brandon Jennings has done those shots before too.
Oh yeah, but see, sometimes players forget, and I think that's just what made it an odd instance or an odd scenario.
And then there's another one with Lance
Stephenson.
First game back on the Pacers.
So Lance Stephenson. All right, before we do that story with him, I'm going to talk about, and I wish I had the video of when he said it. He made a comment because he was asked about how does it feel to come back to Indiana, and how is it going to be when you first play in a game for Indiana. Of all the comparisons you come up with, the first thing he said out of his mouth is going to feel like coming back. It's going to feel like Jordan coming back to Chicago. I was like, wait a minute.
You brought some championships to
I'm like, so
Indiana?
you compare yourself to Michael Jordan coming back. Like, you think you coming back to Indiana is going to be, you returning like Jordan, like it's going to be a new, better, and improved player. When Jordan came back, he had 3 championships.
Even LeBron wasn't cocky enough to say that when he went back to Cleveland.
I think when he went back, it felt good to be home. He was really wanting to come home, and I still, to go back to jump into the LeBron story. LeBron pulled off his job. He got them to the championship. He won a championship. I don't. If they don't win any more championships in Cleveland, he did his job. He did what was expected. I think it's going to be more.
That'll go down.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the NBA is always going to, like, hold... Well, I ain't going to say the NBA. I feel like fans are always going to hold him high on what he has or hasn't done.
Well, I'm saying he's also the guy who quoted after a finals loss or win, saying that I'm the best player in the world. So you do have a high standard when you call yourself the best player in the world.
Between the best player in the world and... I think the other comment he said... So these are... I guess we're doing retro ass of the week for this. When he made the comment referring to... regardless of what happens, you all have to go back to your little jobs and do this, that, and the third, and I still am going to be in the NBA making millions of dollars. When you go that far, it's
taking
like
shots at people's lives.
you just, your priority just you done threw everything out the window. Mm-hmm. So to go into the Lance Stephenson story, I'm sorry, that was like major sidebar, but it was worth it because I really thought those were just odd yet coincidental situations. Mm-hmm. Lance Stephenson, Toronto was already down.
They were, Pacers were up like 15.
Right, they had a pretty substantial lead
with 10 seconds left.
Right, and
no shot clock.
Anytime
soon.
And Stephenson picks the ball up. No, go ahead. I'll let you take this.
He's dribbling down court, and nobody else is running because everybody else thinks like the game's over. Nobody's going to do anything. 10 seconds left.
Yeah,
and he goes up and he does a layup. Turns around, and the whole Raptors team is pissed off.
They waiting. They waited when he came.
They walked to him at half court. Like he has to walk through all of them.
Yeah.
Like you could read DeMar DeRozan's lips when what he's saying.
Yeah, it was some very very explicit detail.
Like they wanted to fight. Like it was real. They wanted to fight.
But in his case, I believe it or not, this might sound crazy. I don't blame him. I don't blame because I feel as though there's a respect factor you have to have for the game.
I'm saying you also, like, the other cardinal rules, like, you still have to be in front of the offensive player, I would assume. Like, you still play defense. Like,
yeah, you do.
Maybe not hardcore defense, but you still, like, stand in front of them.
Yeah, but they let all of that just go to the point where it was just not... It was so random and so unexpected that all you could do was just say, all right, it happened. It was what it was, but it shows me that Lance Stephenson is always going to be...
That makes him Lance Stephenson.
That's what makes him Lance Stephenson because...
That's what Paul George said after the game.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope now that he can bring that type of energy to the team. Yeah. To keep... Because at one point, and this is what I feel...
I actually hope he doesn't because I hope that Paul George comes to the Lakers in 2018. That's
So. I mean, I think what can happen is if PG goes to LA, and we're going to do the hypothetical now as we close. If PG can go to LA... Stevenson can be there to get his contract because what Stevenson is going for is a big contract, and Stevenson has not fulfilled the duties of earning a big contract. Yeah. That's what hurt him when he left Indiana because he was trying to go for a contract because he went to Charlotte. That lasted for like all of a second. Was he in Memphis? He went to a few teams.
He was in Memphis for a little while, actually.
Yeah.
He went to the Clippers, Memphis. I think he might have touched the Bucks as well, too.
He was in New Orleans. When he got to New Orleans, I already knew. I was like, okay. He was between him going to New Orleans and the Bucks might have been in there, but the two teams when I knew it was like, okay, bro, you need to like figure it out. It was the New Orleans and it was Minnesota. That was it for me because I was like, okay, you're signing 10-day contracts, but he was doing that also, and this might sound strange. He was doing that to avoid going to the D League because sometimes you gotta kind of almost make whatever options you can get to work to kind of have them work in your favor. Mm-hmm. But the point being is you between both JaVale. This is for JaVale McGee and Lance Stevenson. Y'all should know the code of the league or know the code of basketball. If you're up by that many points, just let the game run down. Just run the clock down.
Yeah, I bet you Lance Stevenson won't do that again.
Oh no, I think he will do it again because he don't care. Like that's just him.
If he does that again against the Raptors, they're fighting.
Oh, if they do it against the Raptors, yeah, you already know. Because I wouldn't even be surprised if Kyle Lowry come off the bench, and he not even suited up. So that's gonna do it this week for our podcast. I'm not gonna close out. Did you have any before we leave? Is there anything you wanted to leave with saying?
Touch on? Nah. It was a good show. Sorry for the extra sidebars.
Oh no, our sidebars was fine. Like this is how sports goes. Anybody who knows, just in general know-how, and this is gonna be my closing. If you're having a conversation about something and it's an enjoyable conversation, if it goes longer than normal, it's not the end of the world. It just means that you're enjoying the conversation of what you're talking about. So that's what I'm going to leave y'all with as a closing piece. As I've stated before, my Saturday podcasts are going to be long because we just talk, and it's just going to be how it is. So thanks for tuning in. As always, check out the podcast. We do this every week, and I do my personal podcast episodes each day for the month of April. Until next time, Past Podcast signing out. Peace. We've done it once again. We finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Past Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at pastpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.